Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. It is NTI day 16. Before I even start instruction, I'm going to say only my friends who are in the Math Red group should be watching this video, okay? It only applies to them. So if you're not in the Math Red group, you need to find your group and watch that video. All right, so now that I'm talking to all my friends who are in the Red group, I'm going to let you get a little snippet of what I'm expecting out of you after this video. Okay, so this is the Google slide. So if you click it here, okay, our learning objective is the relationships of fractions to decimals. But then I go through and you see money. This is what we're actually going to be looking at. This is something that you're going to look at a lot in 4th grade, and I feel like you guys are ready for it. So we are going to go ahead and dive right in and talk about how are fractions and how are decimals the same. All right. Let's start with fractions to money before we even dive into decimals, because decimals are always out of 100. Well, a dollar has 100 cents. So it's just an easy connection there. So if I'm going to write a fraction on here, and then we're going to talk about what money would that represent. So let's start with an easy fraction of 1/4. Okay. Well, remember, our denominator always tells us how many parts equal a whole. If we're talking in terms of 0 to 1, our whole would be $1. Okay, so we're talking about what's 1/4 of $1. Well, we know that there are 4 quarters in $1. So we know that 1/4 of $1 would be 25 cents, right? Oops, need a pen. There we go. Or a quarter. Okay. All right, let's do another one. What if I put 1/2? Now remember, our whole is $1. So we're talking about what is half of $1. Well, you know that it takes 4 quarters to make $1. Well, if I wanted to do half of $1 would be 50 cents. So I would need 2 quarters. So that tells me 2 quarters, which would really be the fraction of 2/4, which we know 2/4 and 1/2 are the same thing. Okay, so we know that 50 cents is 1/2 of $1. Let's go for a harder one. What if we're looking at 3/10? Well, 10 of something is needed to make $1. Well, I know that it takes 10 dimes to make $1. So I have my dimes right here. Okay. And it takes 10 of these to equal 1 whole to equal $1. So I know that I'd need 3 dimes. 3/10 would be equal to 3 dimes. So I know that 3/10 is the same thing as 30 cents. Okay, you follow me so far? So now you're thinking, what does this have to do with decimals? Well, the easiest way to understand fractions and decimals is to start with the component of money. Okay, so let's go now decimals to money. So I'm going to give a money amount, and then we're going to talk about what would the decimal be. A decimal is less than a whole, okay? So the decimal is always out of 100. It's like having a fraction out of 100. So if I had the money cent, if I had 2 quarters, so I had 50 cents, the decimal that would represent 50 cents would be 0.50. Okay. What if I said that I had 42 cents? Well, the decimal of 42 cents would be 0.42. So if I showed you, okay, I have 4 dimes. I'm going to write a 10 in here so you know that's a dime. And I had 2 pennies. And I said, what is the decimal that represents this money? You'd say 0.42. Okay. Let's do one more example of money to decimals. What if I said that I had the decimal, or I had the money amount of 0.75. I add 3/4. Well, we know the decimal amount of that would be 0.75. See what I'm putting out there? Okay, so now this isn't our objective though. Our objective is to take a fraction to a decimal. That money piece is just helping us out. So we've gone from fractions to money. We went from money to decimals. Now we're going fractions to decimals. Okay, so I'm going to put a fraction on there, and then we're going to talk about what would it be in decimal form. Let's do red and thick. Okay, so my fraction will stick with something simple of 1/2. Now, a decimal is out of 100. So we got to think if our whole is 100, because 100 cents equals $1, what is half of 100? 50. So 50 out of 100 as a decimal would be 0.50. So 1/2 and 0.50 are the exact same thing. Okay, let's do another example. What if I had 1/4? Well, remember, my whole in a decimal has to be out of 100. It takes 100 pennies to get to $1. So we're talking, if I've got 1 out of 4, and we said that it took 4/4 to make $1, we know that one of these quarters is worth 25 cents. This would be 25 out of 100. So I know the decimal form of this would be 0.25. Okay, let's do a couple more examples. What if I said that we had 3 out of, actually, no, I already did that one. So let's do 6 out of 10. Okay, I have the fraction 6/10. If we simplify that, that would be 3/5, because 6 divided by 2 is 3, 10 divided by 2 is 5. So if we have the fraction 3/5 or 6/10, okay, and we remember, we have to take that to a decimal. Well, it's got to be out of 100. 10 times what gets me 100? 10 times 10. So now I've got to do 6 times 10, which would get me 60. So as a decimal, this would be 0.60. That one's a little bit harder. Let's do 2 more examples. Now remember, this is a skill that you're really going to dive into in 4th grade. And 5th grade looks at it a little bit. Every single morning, if you look in Miss Marcy Sutton's room, maybe you guys have seen this before, it has fraction, then it has decimal, then it has money amount. And they keep up with every single day. And that's just to build their number sense. So every day they add something new to it. So this is something you're really going to dive into in 4th and 5th grade. But I want to introduce you to it in 3rd grade. Okay, so what about this one? 4/1. Well, we've been looking at since Monday, we know 4/1 is the same thing as 4 wholes. So we know that the decimal amount would be 4.00. So anytime that you actually have more than 100, it goes here. It looks like money, doesn't it? Just like that, $4. That was my challenge question, if you knew that one. So as a decimal, it would be 4.00. Let's do one more that doesn't quite get into the whole numbers, because your assessment doesn't get into whole numbers just yet, or numbers greater than 1. What if you had 8/10 as a fraction, and you want to write that as a decimal? Remember, decimals are out of 100. So what would 8/10 be if I had to have the denominator of 100? Well, I have to think 10 times what gets me 100? Well, 10 times 10 gets me 100. Whenever I do the denominator, I got to do the numerator. So 8 times 10 would get me 80. So I know as a decimal, it'd be 0.80. Okay, so in this video, we kind of stretched our brains a little bit. We talked about fractions to decimals and the relationship between those. On your phone or tablet or whatever you have at home, there's probably a calculator on it, correct? Like I said with fractions, that division bar is the exact same. Well, that fraction bar is the same thing as division. So really, essentially, you're saying 8 divided by 10. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in on my phone. 8 divided by 10. And look, it gives me 0.8 or 0.80. Okay? What if you had a fraction of 7/10? Well, I'm going to put it in. 7 divided by 10, it gives me 0.7, which is the same thing as 0.70. What about normal fractions that don't connect to money? You add 2/3. Well, I go 2 divided by 3, it gets me 0.6 repeated. Okay, it would round up to 0.67. So as a decimal, it would be 0.67. So I know 2/3 is the same thing as 0.67. I know this because our fraction bar is the same thing as division. Okay, so this is just a little enrichment video. I hope that you guys are somewhat connecting to it. Maybe the money helped, maybe it didn't. But I'm going to show you guys what I expect out of you guys today. So I bought these puzzles online. And I went through and I erased what was actually in the puzzles because we've done puzzles like this before and we cut them out and we do them in a station. Well, I had to get creative with it because you guys aren't here with me to do stations. So what I did is I went ahead and I erased whatever was in here and I created text boxes for you. You will get your own Google Slide version of this. Okay, I've assigned it to everybody, so you'll have your own. You have 10 of these puzzles that you have to fill in the missing blanks. Let's do the first one together. I'm going to count up the money first. Okay, I have a quarter. I always start with the biggest. 25 plus 10 is 35, 40, 45, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. Perfect. Or I could have looked over here and it already told me that I had 56 cents. We have to write that as a fraction. So we would put 56 out of 100. That would be my fraction. If you want to condense that, you can, because I know that 56 is an even number. So you could say 56 divided by 2. And you could do 100 divided by 2. But really all that I'm asking out of you is to put whatever the amount of money is at the top as the numerator and keep the denominator out of 100. So as a decimal, that would be 0.56. See that? All right, the next one asks you to make the fraction and also write it and say cents. Well, it already tells me I have 0.53, so I'd come in here and I'd say 53 out of 100. 53 cents. Whoop. I don't know why I put centers. There we go. 53 cents. Got it? So you'll do all 10 of these. The last 3 are the the last 4 are the hardest because they have all of these that are blank. Okay, and it's talking about the relationship between money, the relationship between decimals, and the relationship between fractions, which is everything that we've covered today. And after you're done with that, it automatically sends a copy to me, so you don't even have to worry about sharing it, and you'll be done with math for the day. So your goals for today. Number 1, I want you to get a Zern lesson done. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, we do Zern lessons. Number 2, you're going to watch this video. Number 3, you're going to fill out your Google slide. Okay, so we're not all on the same Google slide. You get your own. And then I just want to let you know that tomorrow it's going to be just one video for everyone, and it's going to be everything that we learned about fractions. And there's going to be a quiz so that it ends fractions. We're done with our fractions unit, and next week we're actually going to move on to geometry. So I'm really excited about that. Well, let me know if you guys have any questions because tomorrow is the day of the quizzes and I want to make sure that everybody understands. But if you have any questions, make sure that you let me know. Hope you guys have an awesome Wednesday. I will see you guys tomorrow.